Joining us from Washington, Dan Arbell is a non-resident senior fellow at the Center for Middle East Policy at the Brookings Institute. He's also a 25-year veteran of the Israeli Foreign Service. Dan, great to have you with us on the rundown. When you see what has happened, this sort of ridiculous dressing down at the airport and then at the foreign ministry today, is this just another fluke, another moment in bad Israeli-Turkey relations, or is this the sign of, yet again, heading in a bad permanent direction?
This is obviously very regretful, and it's not the first time that we're seeing it. As your reporter just brought the whole story, that in the last few years, Turkey and Israel are at each other's throat. But it's more that the Turkish side is making it very problematic for Israel to conduct a business-as-usual approach. Turkish president is attacking Israel left and right viciously, anti-Semitic comments, anti-Israel comments, very, very hard in such an atmosphere to conduct a normal diplomatic relationship. And it looks right now as if though this is playing well for him in Turkish public opinion as he is facing another election in June. And so it plays well with his Turkish constituency, with his home base. And it's likely to go on until the elections, and perhaps even more, because we're seeing these actions which are not helpful. And at a certain point, while right now it's somewhat contained, at a certain point it can spin out of control, and it can become a very, very, even more severe situation.
Dan, Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman was a severe critic of that reconciliation agreement between Israel and Turkey, again saying today it was a mistake. Israel gave up too much and only encouraged President Erdogan. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that at the time when Israel and Turkey signed the normalization agreement ending a 6-year crisis, I think it was timely because both countries had mutual interests, and it made sense at the time for the two of them to come together to discuss the situation in Syria, to share intelligence, to explore possible cooperation in natural gas import, export, economic cooperation. So there are many issues that are important in the relationship, and it was time to move forward. But as we see over and over again, it's President Erdogan of Turkey is just a spoiler and just ruins everything. Once things go in a positive direction, he kind of brings it back to, he can't help himself but bring it back to square one, and that's very problematic. When the president of Turkey acts in such an irresponsible way, it creates a lot of problems.
Dan, you mentioned a couple of things that are at stake, including natural gas. So if this isn't remedied, if this keeps going in this direction, with fighting words both from Turkey and from Israel, what is at stake?
So as you've mentioned, so potential cooperation on natural gas is at stake. Economic cooperation, business, which is going quite well between the two countries, is at stake. Tourism flowing from one country to the other is at stake. Just a view of the region, looking at the crises in the region and kind of sharing, exchanging views and information is at stake. So it makes sense for these two allies of the United States to cooperate. Strategically, it makes a lot of sense. And by not cooperating, they're missing out on a huge potential. But unfortunately, in such circumstances, it's very hard to go about business as usual, as I've said before.
Dan, you mentioned the upcoming Turkish elections. Is it possible after that, if things, nothing extraordinary happens, this will die down? Or do you think that Erdogan has a reason to keep it simmering?
So obviously, as we head to the election, it's going to keep being an issue on the news. After the election, it may subside. It also depends on the situation on the ground, whether violence will continue or not. It looks like now like things are calming down in Gaza or along the Israeli-Gaza border fence. But if the situation calms down and perhaps in some months' time, they can go back at trying to see if there's any common ground and to return to a somewhat more normal atmosphere. But for the time being, it doesn't look like it's going in that direction.
All right, Dan Arbell in Washington.